يا بني المصطفى أنتم ظهري يا عيني أنتم ظهري فارحموا عبدكم واجبروا كسري فارحموا عبدكم واجبروا كسري هلا جئتكم رجيا بأبي بكر يا عيني بأبي بكر وبمن عدله شمل الأكوان وعلي مرتضى وشهيد من هلا وصلوا حبكم يا ذوي القرب.
I have to say that I'm so honored Habib Ali is here with us, and when it was proposed that we launch this book here, I was sent an email saying, can you invite Habib Ali al Jiffri? And I said to my wife, in their dreams. Be careful what you dream for. I found myself in front of him last December, and if you don't ask, you don't get. I said, would you come to the launch? And he said, I'll come. So Bismillah is here because of that. Alhamdulillah. I have to say also that this project is a contradiction. This is a book, a project about a group of people who do not want to be known, who do not want to be photographed, and who don't want to be exposed like this. But I felt the time is so dark that they need to be remembered so that we might remember God. And that's the important thing about these people, is they are signposts to God. And we get caught up in our own shayuk and we love them to bits. But we have to always remember they are human beings and they are here to show us the way to God. So I'm just going to dip into some of the people featured in the book. And the book is massive, as you've already seen. It's 380 pages. And I'm just going to give you a taster of some of the people and some of the stories. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This is the ayat in the Quran in which the title of the book came from. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Have not we made the earth an expanse with the mountains as pegs? And really these people are like pegs. And this is the image that we use for the cover of the book. And I will explain about this sheikh when I get to him. The book starts off with, of course, the Prophet ﷺ. He is the blueprint for all these people. And I entitled his section, The Chosen One Who Climbed the Mountain to Enter the Cave of His Own Heart. And one of his constant prayers, ﷺ, was, O God, put light in my heart and light in my grave, and light in my hearing and light in my sight, and light in my hair and light in my skin, and light in my flesh and light in my blood, and light in my bones and light in my nerves, and light in front of me and light behind me, and light to my right and light to my left, and light above me and light below me. O God, increase me in light and make light for me. This is Jabal Nur, where he retreated to communicate with God. And this is the view from that cave across the nearby mountains. This is his cloak, and I'm sure many of you know the story of Wael al-Qarani, but it's very significant in regards to the awliya. Wael al-Qarani came to Medina to meet the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ was traveling at that time. And Wael al-Qarani's mother was sick, and so he didn't want to stay away too long. So after a few days he left. But when the Prophet ﷺ came, he sensed that there had been someone there, and he asked about who had been there, and they told him about Faisal Qarani, and he gave his cloak and he sent it to him. This is often considered a sign of wilayat. This is a true story. This happened to me really early on in my in the early 70s. But I was traveling in Morocco, and I was in Casablanca, and I saw a very tall, righteous man in a jalaba with a gold turban. And I was struck by his appearance. I felt to myself that he was one of the Salihin. The next day, in Marrakesh, I went to Marrakesh, I saw the same man. This time he came and spoke to me. And he told me a story. He told me a story of a man that came to Marrakesh to research the number of saints in the city. So the man went to the local grocers to buy some sugar and tea. And the vendor, not knowing anything about his project, said, "You can put me on your list." And the man was startled. He had said nothing of the project to the man. Later that day, he went to buy some meat. Again, without the man speaking of the project, the man said to him, "You can put me on your list." At that point, the man gave up his project. He realized that the seeker and the sought were one, not separate, and that the one is source of everything. This is a true story. Within every country, in every city, and every town and village, there are saints, some known and many unknown. This is where the thing started. I had a young friend of mine, John. He was not a Muslim. He used to print my photographs for me. And someone asked him if he would copy a passport photograph. He was given this photograph. And he was in, those of you that know how to develop, this is the old school of developing pictures in the dark room with a red light. And he copied the image and he was making a large print of it. And in the red eerie light, the blank piece of photographic paper, this face began to appear in front of him. When he'd finished, he was not happy with the print. He decided to leave it, go home, and he would come back to the print on Monday. When he returned on Monday, the photograph had turned gold. 3 weeks later, John's life changed. He became a Muslim, and we began to talk. That passport was a passport of Sidi Muhammad ibn Habib, who I met when I first had accepted Islam, and I traveled to Morocco to visit this sheikh. And he has a beautiful diwan, and in the diwan, a couple of the lines say, "For if a person truly knew the worth of his heart, he would give all he had without hesitation. And if a person came to know the bliss within his soul, he would shed a tear of joy with every breath he took." When I took this picture, I don't know how I took it. I was in a state of confusion. I was meeting him for the first time. And to me, it's a miracle that the pictures of him came out. But this was the beginning of me on this project. I didn't know it at the time, but this was the first thing that set me off on this journey. There was a young man who used to sleep outside the door of Sidi Muhammad Habib every night, ready to serve him whatever he wanted. He was Sidi Muhammad bil Kushi. When the Sheikh died in 1971, Sidi Muhammad bil Kushi traveled down into the desert and hid himself in the desert. We went to visit him with the notion that he was the Sheikh. And we told him, I went with a group, and we said to him, "We believe you are the Sheikh and the continuation of that tariqah." He got very angry in a very saintly way and said, "I'm not a Sheikh, I'm not a Fakir, I'm not a Muqaddam, I'm nothing. Leave me alone." I knew then that he was really the real thing, because of his humility. Really, I mean, his humility was beyond belief. This picture was the only picture that existed him for 35 years. He never let anybody take his picture. In 2007, I knew then he was 102 years old. I flew to Marrakesh, and then we drove 11 hours down to where he was, with the notion that I would take his picture because I really wanted his picture. I spoke to his sons about it. They laughed. They said, if you ask him to take his picture, he'll say no. So I said, oh, what do I do? So anyway, we were sitting with him. It was night time. There was horrible strip lighting. There was a Moroccan man in our group said, go, take the Sheikh's picture. I was saying, no, that's not the idhan I wanted. I want the Sheikh to allow me to take the picture. But it wasn't going to happen. So I had to take the courage to just take 3 pictures. I took 3 pictures, and this is 2 of them. Alhamdulillah, he died very shortly after this. And Sidi Ali, after Sidi Muhammad Habib died, lived in the Zawiya. He was a lumberjack. He was blind. He was made blind from a tree that fell across him. And during the time he was in a coma in the hospital, Sidi Muhammad Habib appeared to him and taught him his word. And then from then on, he was based in the Zawiya and looked after the Zawiya. And I was very fond of him. I loved him so much. No one could see what a high station he was. And he learnt a few words in English. If you were sitting with him, he would say, eat a lot, drink a lot, wake up shwiya, like wake up a little bit. And we used to laugh about it. And one day I was with Sheikh Hamza, and he said, you know, he's speaking to you directly. This is your medicine. Eat a lot, sleep a lot, and wake up shwiya. I'm still trying to learn that lesson after 40 years. He was an incredible person. One day I went to him and said, I need to go to the Jummah tomorrow. And will you take me? I don't know where the mosque is. Now he's blind, right? So you can imagine he led me through the streets, him in his robes and me all dressed in my Western clothes. And when we got to the Jummah, he said, just leave me here and I'll see you later. When I came out after the Jummah, I thought in my misconception that he was begging because he was just standing there like that. So I went and put some coins in his hands and went back to the Zawiya. Half an hour later, he came back. He said, where were you? I said, I thought you were working because there's no social security in Morocco. He has no money, no income. He said, I wasn't working, I was waiting for you. See, this is the adab of a faqir. He was waiting for me to take me back to the Zawiya. He passed away recently and I really miss him. Incredible. This is one of the wives of Sidi Muhammad Habib. We had a friend of ours, Haroon and I, who's a musician. He's never been to Morocco and he's never met any of the awliya. And he wanted to go. And he's had a lot of heart problems. He's been in and out of hospital. So we decided to take him. We made a very modest trip. We took him to Meknes. And we went into the Zawiya. And Layla Zuleika was sitting by the tomb. Now these two have never met. When he came in, she said, I've been waiting for you. I've seen you 7 times before. And then she put her hand on his heart and started praying. I said, he's having the pre-op before he goes back to England for the main operation. And alhamdulillah, he's still well. And mashallah. Sheikh Murabat al-Hajj, what do you say about these people really? I mean, this was one of the hardest photos to take. If you can imagine, we're in the middle of the desert and he's doing what he's done forever, teaching. If he's not teaching, he's praying. And if he's not, he used to sleep 2 hours a night and just drink camel's milk. Taking his picture seemed such an imposition on him, but I felt that I had to do it before he disappears.
Allah.
Habib Ahmed Mashur al-Haddad, beloved by name, beloved by nature. This man No words, really. I hope the photos do them justice. I can't, writing this text of this book was the most difficult thing for me. They say that 80,000 people became Muslim from him. He used to travel to remote parts of Africa, or even where there was cannibalism, and talk to the tribes. When it got to 80,000, he told them to stop counting. They say the true number was 120,000. This was him in Ramadan just a few weeks before he passed away. So full of light and so peaceful. My wife and I were taken to the home of this man by a lady who loves the awliya in Jeddah. And we were sitting in her car and she phoned up, and then we watched while the men all quietly left, and then we were allowed to go in. This man is 106 years old. He had more energy than all of us. He was running up and down stairs, getting drinks, getting us food. During the conversation, he told me, "I'm going to live to I'm 111. I said, "Really?" Some years later, I met a young man and his name came up. I said, "Oh." He said, "Yes, he just passed away." I worked it out. He was 111. Can I get some water? Is that possible?
There is some.
This is Sheikh Mohammed Iqbal Abbasi Al-Qadri Al-Madani. He lived in Medina for 60 years. And he used to look after Sayyidina Abu Bakr's mosque, and then he was given the very privileged job to sweep out the MashaAllah, thank you. MashaAllah. He was given the auspicious job to sweep out the tomb of the Prophet ﷺ, and he did this for 10 years. I had the good fortune to meet him many occasions. His followers used to bring him to England, and he was already, when I met him, maybe 105 or something. He would do these grueling tours up and down England, all over the place. There's many followers around the UK. And fortunately, he used to come and stay near where I was, and I used to go and sit with him. So one day I was sitting with him, and I had my photographic hat on. So I wanted to know exactly what was inside the tomb. So I said to him, "Can you tell me exactly what's inside there?" He said, "Light." So I thought that he misunderstood me. So I asked him again. He said, "Light." I asked him the third time. He said, "Light." But he said, "You will only see light if you have light in your heart. If you have darkness in your heart, you will not see it." He died at the age of 125. I did a journey where we drove from Istanbul all the way through Turkey, all the way through Iran. We were going all the way through Turkmenistan, and we were going to go to Uzbekistan. But for some reason the border was closed in Uzbekistan, and we were in the city of Merv, and we found ourselves at the graves of two Sahaba who were buried in this really remote place. I said, "We have to go and visit them." And as I went towards the grave, I saw this lady standing outside, and the young man was unlocking the graves. As soon as I saw her from my side, I realized that she was a very saintly person. And after we had greeted the Sahaba, I found out that she served the nearby tomb of Qadri Sheikh Yusuf al-Hamdani for 60 years. And again, I was nervous about taking a picture. Culturally, sometimes it's not acceptable. But the lady that was with us said, "Yeah, you can take her picture." The light was failing, really. I was nervous the picture wouldn't come out. There was hardly any light in there. But alhamdulillah, the picture came out. I've met saints everywhere. In China, I met this man. He was over 90 years old. He used to ride a bicycle every day. He was fluent in Arabic and he had a brain that was as sharp as a knife. Sidi Abu Bakr Martin Lings. At the age of 96, Sidi Abu Bakr Martin Lings gave a presentation in Wembley. In front of a packed audience, he stood the entire time, an hour and a half. And as I lifted my lens to take his picture, I physically got goosebumps, because that image that you see is what I saw when I looked through the lens. And I just think everybody needs to see this. He looks like a prophet. He's so full of light. None of us knew that 2 weeks later he would pass away. Inshallah. There's a couple of lines in the Diwan. It says, "Then let your thoughts range free before the mountains, and you will find them without doubt to be the pegs of the earth. They are among us, although we may not see them. If we can learn, as these mountains have, the science of purifying our souls, we can bring back into the world unimaginable balance, beauty and serenity. It is my sincere prayer that we do." Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peter. That was really, really insightful. I'm sure it gave you all a beautiful insight to what seems like a wonderful journey. I don't know how you have managed to capture that over 50 years, but clearly it's been a long and personal journey and a very beautiful one. I'm looking forward to hearing more about. You, Peter, just so everyone is aware, Adeel will be doing a book signing after this, so ensure you buy the book. So we're going to go on to our next speaker, we have with us, as Adeel and Peter mentioned earlier, we're so honoured today to have Habib Ali al Jiffri with us. He needs no introduction. Most of you will know who he is, but I think it's only fair that I give him one. It's only fair that I do that. So Habib Ali al Jiffri is an Islamic scholar and a spiritual educator based in the United Arab Emirates. He is the founder and director of Saba Foundation, a research institute based in Abu Dhabi. Habib Ali has his translation, Wael, and he'll be speaking, and there'll be translation done at the same time. So over to Habib Ali Jiffri.
Bismillah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Peace be upon you and the mercy of God and His blessings.
تحيتهم يوم يلقونه سلام.
Their greeting the day they meet Him will be peace.
وسر اللقاء بالسلام مقدم قبل يوم القيامة.
The secret of meeting with the greeting of peace precedes the day of judgment and the day we'll stand with God.
فإن لله عبادا قد تجلى عليهم باسمه السلام ففاضت أنوار السلام من أرواحهم على أشباحهم.
For there are servants of God upon whom God has deigned to manifest Himself through His name As-Salam, which means peace, so that the light of that name has poured onto their soul, their spirit, and from there onto their bodies. It suffused their bodies.
فينظر مفتقد السلام إلى وجوههم فيجد فيها مددا من مدد الله السلام يسري من قلوبهم إلى وجوههم ومن وجوههم إلى قلبه فيطمئن قلبه بتجلي الله السلام.
So that when someone who is in a state of unrest looks upon their faces, he sees what's that light of the name of God when God's manifested to them, then to Himself to them through His name, the one who gives the source of peace. The light of that has permeated their hearts and suffused their faces, and that person who looks upon them will have that go from their faces to his heart. So he will receive a support from God through the manifestation of his name as Salam.
وفي شمائله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم من نظر إلى وجهه عرف أنه ليس بوجه كذاب.
And from the Prophet's description sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the Shama'il is that whomever looked upon his countenance, face sallallahu alaihi wasallam, would know this wasn't the face of someone who lied.
ووصف الله أثر هذا المعنى على الوجوه حين قال وجوه يومئذ ناظرة يومئذ ناظرة إلى ربها ناظرة.
And God, glory be to him, he gave us an indication of this when he said, and faces upon that day which will be resplendent, looking upon their Lord.
قال تعرف في وجوههم نظرة النعيم.
And he says, glory be to him in the Quran also, and you'll know in their countenance the look of bounty, of having been recipients of bounty.
بل إن سادتنا الصحابة رضي الله تعالى عنهم وأرضاهم نالوا مقام الصحبة الذي لا يعلوه إلا مقام النبوة بمجرد أنهم نظروا إلى وجه سيدنا محمد وهم مؤمنون بنبوته.
He said when the Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, attained the vast and great rank of being a companion of the Prophet by the fact that they accepted him sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a prophet and looked upon his countenance, and by that they attained the rank of Sahaba.
والتابعون فضيلتهم أنهم لقوا من لقي رسول الله.
And as for the Tabi'un, the generation of successors, their merit, their virtue, their greatness is due to the fact that they looked upon people who looked upon the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
وقد أخبر صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم أنه يأتي زمان يستفتح فيه فيقال أفيكم من رأى رسول الله فيستفتح بهم فيفتح الله.
It came in a report that there'll come a time when to reach an opening or a conquest, someone would say to others, is there amongst you anyone who's looked upon someone who's looked upon the Messenger of Allah? And when they said yes, this person, by that person they will give a victory.
قال صلى الله عليه وسلم ثم يأتي زمان أي ينتهي فيه الصحابة فيقال أفيكم من رأى رسول الله فيستفتح بهم فيفتح الله للناس.
So the report says that they will ask if there's anyone who saw the Prophet, and through that one Sahabi they'll be given victory. And then there'll come a generation when the Sahaba have all passed away, and the Prophet said, and they will ask, is there amongst you anyone who has seen someone who's seen the Messenger of Allah? So the Tabi'in, the successors, and they'll say, someone will say, yes, me, and through him they'll be given victory.
ثم يأتي زمان ينادى فيه أفيكم من رأى أصحاب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فيستفتح بهم فيفتح الله لهم. هكذا أخبرنا صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم.
And there'll come a time, he said, when that generation will die out and people, the next generation will say, is there amongst you anyone who has seen someone who has seen the Messenger of Allah? Meaning so, 2 generations. And he said that by that person being there, they'll be given victory. And this is what he told us sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
هذا معنى
There's a reality to this.
لسريان النور.
It's the reality of the light that permeated from the Prophet to the companions to the successors and the
لسريان
successors.
النور عبر الذوات البشرية.
And it's the light permeating and being passed on from one human soul to another, or one human essence soul to another.
يتجلى الله تعالى النور باسمه النور السلام على قلب فيسري نور هذا التجلي إلى من يحيط به على قدر بحثهم وتعطشهم وتعلقهم بسريان هذا النور إليهم.
So the light of God is through His name, the light, and His name is Salam, peace, will permeate from that heart to the hearts of people around them in proportion to how much they seek that light out and they want to receive that light.
وعندما لقيت سيدي عبد العظيم في مؤتمر في بداية هذا العام ودعاني إلى حضور إطلاق كتابه هذا لم أشعر بأي تردد. في العادة أتردد وأنظر واستخارة، لم أشعر بأي تردد للحظة واحدة. وقلت لأخوتي الذين في المكتب معي رتبوا لنا الرحلة هذه لأحضر. قالوا أنت رحلتك إلى بريطانيا في شهر 9 أو شهر 10، هناك فارق قريب. قلت لا، أذهب خصيصا لإطلاق هذا الكتاب. فلهذا الرحلة هذا القصد الأساسي منها الحضور مع سيدي عبد العظيم ساندرس لإطلاق هذا الكتاب.
So when Abdul Azim met me earlier this year in a conference and said, I would like you to be there when we launch this book, he said without a moment's hesitation, usually I'll think about it, I'll go and do istikhara, I'll see what the schedule is for the year. But without a moment's hesitation, I said, I'll come. And I said to the people around me in my office, I said, organize and put in the schedule that we go to this. So the primary reason for me being in Britain now, and they said to me, we're going to be in Britain in September, October. He said, no, I'm going specifically for this. So the primary reason of me being here is for the launch of this book today.
والسبب في ذلك مع ما أودعه الله عز وجل في القلب من محبة لعبد العظيم ساندرس وأخوة روحانية بيني وبينه، الصلة بشيخنا الحبيب أحمد مشهور الحداد، شيخنا الحبيب عبد القادر السقاف، وحال الجمال الطمأنينة والروحانية التي لديه. هذا سبب أساسي، وهناك سبب آخر.
He said, the reasons for me coming to this is because, for one thing, the love that's between me and Abdul Azim, the fact that we both have a connection to our sheikhs, Habib Ahmed Mashhur al-Haddad and Habib Abdul Qadir al-Saqaf, and the tranquility and the peace that you see when you see Abdul Azim Saunders and his spirituality. That's one reason. There's another reason also.
لكن هناك سبب آخر. إنسان يقضي 50 سنة من عمره وهو يرحل بحثا عن وجوه تدل على الله.
The other reason is that a man who spends 50 years of his life looking for faces that in which you can see and that point you back to God because of the light that's suffused them.
هذا أمر يستدعي أن نتوقف عنده كثيرا.
He said it's something immense that we need to stop and think about.
المسألة ليست مجرد هوس فنان.
He said it's not just the madness of an artist.
لا، هذا الشغف الذي لدى سيدي عبد العظيم، والفنان المصور الفنان يحسن قراءة الوجوه، الشغف الذي لديه في قراءة وجوه أهل الله ومحاولة مراودة الكاميرا عن نفسها لتقبل نقل شيء مما تراه عيناه في تلك الوجوه.
He said it's the eye of a photographer who can read faces, and he can see something in those faces, and it's almost like he makes the camera do things that it doesn't usually do in order for the camera to approximate to what he's seeing with his eyes when he looks at those faces, and try and capture what he's seeing with his eyes.
لما سألته قبل أن ندخل إلى المجلس هنا ما هي الرسالة التي تحب أن أهتم بإيصالها إلى الناس؟
So when I asked him, what's the message you would like me to convey to people today?
قال لي أن الناس اليوم يتحدثون كثيرا عن السلام.
He said to me, today people talk a lot about peace.
لكن الذين صورتهم خلال 50 سنة ووضعت صورهم في كتابي كانوا يعيشون السلام.
He said, but those who I sought after and who are photographed for this book, they lived peace.
ومعنى أنهم كانوا يعيشون السلام أي أنهم كانوا يعيشونه في بواطنهم فنضح على ظواهرهم.
He said, meaning that there are people whose outward reflected what was in their inward.
نحن لنا فترة إذا ذكر الأولياء وذكر الصالحون تنشغل الناس عند ذكرهم بمعترك سخيف. أنا آسف على هذه العبارة، معترك سخيف حول قضية الأولياء والتوسل والقبور وهذا يؤيد وهذا ضد، وتنسى الناس القصة الحقيقية وهي الأولياء.
you know, so the thing is, in these times when someone talks about the awliya, which means the friends of God, those who receive God's aid, the closest approximation to it in the English language culture is the saints. And when one talks about them nowadays, we go into a dumb, and he said, forgive me for the expression, a dumb argument of whether it's okay to visit their grave or to beseech Allah and by their rank, and so on. This one's for it, this one's against it. And the whole argument becomes about that. And he said, and the awliya, the actual existence of these friends of God, is totally forgotten and sidelined. What's the meaning of God saying when He says in the Quran, truly the friends of God, there's no fear for them, nor shall they be sad. Those who believe and have taqwa. They'll have glad tidings in the life of this world and in the next world.
ما معنى قول الحق سبحانه وتعالى في الحديث القدسي الذي أخرجه البخاري وغيره ولا يزال عبدي يتقرب إلي بنوافل حتى أحبه.
And what's the meaning of God saying through the Hadith Qudsi, the sacred tradition where the Prophet speaks from God's presence, and it's narrated in Bukhari and other Sahih books, authentic traditions. God says, and my slave ceases not to draw near to me through extra worship until I love him.
حتى أحبها حتى العرب تقول للغاية.
And hatta for the Arabs, when they say hatta, until I love him, it's said when something's reached its very apex point, its end.
حتى أحبه فإذا أحببته كنت سمعه الذي يسمعه به. الله يقول.
So until the end, I love him. And when I love him, it is by me he hears.
وبصره الذي يبصر به.
And the eyes by which he sees.
ويده التي يبطش بها.
And the hand by which he acts.
ورجله التي يمشي بها.
And the foot by which he moves.
ولئن سألني لأعطينه.
And truly, if he were to ask me, I would give it to him.
ولئن استعاذ بي لأعيذنه.
And if he sought refuge in me, I'd give him refuge.
ما معنى قول الحبيب صلى الله عليه وسلم المرء مع من أحب أنت مع من أحببت. هذا حديثنا عن الأولياء.
And the Prophet's, what's the meaning of the Prophet's words when he says, you'll be with those you love. A man is with those he loves. This is what we're really talking about when we're talking about awliya.
أحباب الله إن أحببناهم كنا معهم.
They're the beloveds of God, so if we love them, we'll be with them.
ومعهم أخلاقا وحالا ونورانية ومعية في الآخرة إن شاء الله.
And with them, meaning through their character, through their light, and hopefully also in the next world we'll be together.
نختم الكلام بقصة.
So I'd like to conclude my words with a story, with an anecdote.
كانوا يذكرون أن أحد الأولياء الصالحين له مريد يأخذ عنه.
They say that one of the friends of God had a seeker who was his disciple. He was learning from him.
وكان المريد يلح على الشيخ أن يعلمه اسم الله الأعظم.
And so they say this seeker kept on beseeching this teacher of his, this man of God, to teach him the greatest name of God.
الذي إذا دعي به أجاب.
Which they say if God is called upon through the greatest name, he'll answer your call.
فكان الشيخ يقول لا يا بني لم تتأهل بعد لتعلم الاسم الأعظم.
And the Sheikh would say to him, my son, you're not ready to take this yet. You're not ready for this.
كان من وقت لآخر يعود ويلح على الشيخ ويقول له الشيخ لم تتأهل بعد.
And so from one time to another, the student would leave it, but then he'd come back to the Sheikh with the same thing. Can you give me the greatest name? Can you teach me the greatest name of God? And he'd say to him, my son, you're not ready to carry that yet.
يوم من الأيام جاء المريد وهو متحمس غاية في الحماس وقال أما الآن فقد وجب أن تعلمني الاسم الأعظم.
So one day the student came in a state of very zealous state, and he says to him, right here, right now, you have to give me, it's obligatory for you to give me the greatest name of God. And so the Sheikh says to him, what made it obligatory, my son?
قال أرأيت الشيخ الكبير في السن الشايب الذي يجلس عند باب المسجد وأحيانا يساعده الناس؟ قال نعم. قال جاء العسكر اليوم وضربوه ضربا شديدا حتى أدموه وكاد روحه تزهق.
He said, you know that old man who sits outside the mosque and people give him money? He said, yes. He said, today I saw the soldiers beat him so hard, he almost died.
قال نعم.
He said, yes, and? The Sheikh said, yes, and?
قال لا يعني أريد الآن تعلمني الاسم الأعظم.
He said, I want you now to teach me the greatest name of God.
قال ما الذي يجعل هذا الآن واجب؟
So the Sheikh said, what makes it obligatory now?
قال حتى أدعو الله باسمه الأعظم على هؤلاء العسكر الذين ضربوا هذا الشايب المظلوم.
And he said, so that I can ask God by His greatest name, so that God exacts His vengeance and justice on these people who beat this old man in a state of injustice. So he said the people who oppressed this man, and the Sheikh smiled at his student.
قال وتضحك يا شيخنا.
And the student said, after all this, and you still laughing, Sheikh?
قال نعم. ألم أقل لك يا بني أنك لم تتأهل بعد لحمل اسم الله الأعظم.
He said, didn't I tell you, my boy, you're not ready to carry the greatest name of God yet?
قال كيف ماذا تقصد؟ هذا ظلم.
He said, what do you mean? What are you talking about? This is injustice, what you're saying.
قال رأيت هذا الشيخ الشايب المسكين الذي يجلس في آخر المسجد وضربوه؟
He said, did you see that old man that sits right at the end of the mosque that you said they beat up today?
قال نعم.
He said, yes, I saw him.
قال هو الذي علمني اسم الله الأعظم.
He said, he was the man that taught me the greatest name of God.
نسأل الله أن يكلمنا عنه إنه ولي ذلك والقادر عليه.
Thank you so much for that. That was beautiful. I think now will be a really lovely time to have a discussion about the book in a bit more detail, Peter. I guess the first question to you would be, you, over the 5 decades, you've travelled the world to capture these saintly people. But within the Islamic context, we know that there's no barometer. How do you measure religiosity? And we've obviously you've both spoken about it's through experiences, it's through identifying of light, it's through the identification of love and a connection with these people. But how do you find, how do you find these people? Some people I know you already are aware. I know Habib Ali is obviously featured in that, and many of them have passed away. How did you come across them?
I have to always prefix that this book is not a who's who of these people. The who's who of these kind of people would be a very different kind of book. And I have no right to say that person is a saint or that person is a sheikh. It's my own personal journey. And the reason any of those people are in that book is because when I met them, they changed me in some way, that I benefited from being in their company. So that's very important to understand that. It's interesting because, and it seems such a long time ago, I think 25 years ago, I showed Habib the book as it was at that point. And he looked through it and then he said, where's the Shaykh of Syria? Where's Ramadan Bhuti? Where's Sheikh Muhyiddin Khadi? I said, Habib, I've never been to Syria, I don't know any of them. He said, you need to go, you need to photograph them. And then he thought, he said, no, I'll have to go with you because they won't let you take their pictures. I'll have to intercede for you to take their pictures. And this is what he did. We had an amazing journey. This was before the war. And really, the people we met, you'll see them in the book, really. And that's the blessing of Habib that I was able to meet them. I can't remember what was the other bit of your question.
What was the second part of my question? No, I think you answered it, as in how you came across them.
Sorry, and also, it was very instinctually. As a photographer, I work on my instincts. Sheikh Hamza came to me one day and showed me this really bad video. And it was Sheikh Murabit al-Hajj, and he said, I really want you to come and meet him and photograph. I took one look, I said, I'll come. You know, and that was a difficult journey. It took us 24 hours to get there. But just seeing that funny, strange video, I just knew that that man was an extraordinary being. So it's just following my own instincts, really.
That's, being a photographer, clearly you have that, and it's trusting your, maybe what we say in English, your gut.
Yes.
It's trusting your instinct. I just want to go on further. Many of the people that we've seen today, and I'm sure in the book, they're, alhamdulillah, they've lived a long life, over 100 years. So there are a lot of awliya who have vast life experiences, and you know, over 50 years, as you've mentioned, some of them have passed away, so we're losing that tradition, we're losing that sacred tradition. Now, this day and age, when we're living in a society with what's going on in the world and multifaceted identity issues that Muslims face, what's happening to this tradition of awliya and tradition and young people coming forward? Because you mentioned some people in the book who are lumberjacks, everyday people, you know, everyday from all walks of life. But now, we're in a so traditional Islam would have been people from all walks of life who just sit with a shield because they're mureeds and you know they travel the world and they travel with their teachers to become closer to the divine. But in the UK, and I can speak for the UK, there is a tradition where it's not academic. Not everyone is. Everyone fits that mould, and the awliya are dying out. So what happens to the next generation of people today? Who do they look up to? What's going to happen to that tradition? Well, in your view, and I will then hand that over to Shafiq as well.
I mean, the awliya, the saints have always existed within every religion. They've always existed. They've always been part of traditional life. The elders were always respected as people who were the guardians of wisdom. We live now at a time where economy is everything. So when you're old, you have no economic value.
Absolutely.
So people, even if they have wisdom, it's not considered valuable because they don't generate money. But they generate the one thing we need, which is knowledge and wisdom. And they can answer our problems when we face them. And the thing about the saints is they come in every different form, as you will see in the book, and I've met saints who wear suits, I've met saints who are lumberjacks, I've met saints who are beggars, I've met great scholars who are saints. They come in, this is the mercy of God. Because we're not all academics, I don't consider myself an academic. But God gave me the grace to meet these people and they really affected my life, really. I can never thank God enough for having met them because they changed my life. Really, and sometimes they just say something to you, and if you're not listening, you'll miss it, you know, and there's great wisdom in it. Like Sidi Ali saying, eat a lot, sleep a lot, wake up Shriya. Everybody would laugh, but there was wisdom in what he was saying. And we must never forget that. There is a story in Rumi that really helped me understand the position of the awliya. And there was a secretary to one of the emirs, and he was known that if you petitioned him, your petition would get through to the emir. So people always gave him their requests to him. But he used to apologize and say, I don't know why you give these to me. Whenever I enter the presence of the emir, I go unconscious. I fall unconscious in front of him. Then Rumi explains that when the secretary went unconscious, the emir would lean over into his pocket, take out the letters, read them, and put them back. And that's how the letters got answered. So he wasn't conscious of the process. It was just the fact of asking him, and because of his nearness to the emir, the questions got answered.
Wael, do you want to pose a question to Habib Ali? No? We were just talking about the awliya and the generation that are dying. Yeah.
والمعنى الذي ذكره سيدي عبد العظيم ما نراه والقاعدة الأصلية.
Said what Sidi Abdul Adim said was very verified and exalted. And he said the foundation, the principle is
القاعدة الأصلية أنه لا يعرف الولي إلا من ولاه.
He said the reality is that no one will let you know who the wali is except the one who made him a wali.
ولا يعرف الولي إلا الولي.
And also no one recognizes a wali but a wali.
ولكن كانوا يقولون أن حسن الظن هو شبكة اصطياد الأولياء.
But they said that having a good opinion is the net with which you capture awliya.
السؤال الذي قبل هذا السؤال لماذا نحتاج نبحث عن الأولياء؟
He said, but the real question before that is, why do we need to look for awliya?
لأن المرء يحشر مع من أحب صحيح.
One will say, give us the answer because you'll be resurrected with those you loved. Yes, that's one answer.
أيضا لأن الإنسان يتأثر بالمشاكلة. العقل يتأثر بالعقل والسلوك يتأثر بالسلوك والروح تتأثر بالروح.
The other reason is that when people are put together, people are affected. When there is a rapport, if it's intellectual, you'll be intellectually affected. If it's by someone's behavior, your behavior will be affected. If it's by the spirit, your spirit will be affected.
يذكرون عن أحد الصالحين من أهل الله كان مسافرا من بغداد إلى الحج فمر في الطريق بقرية من القرى.
So they say that one of the stories told is there was a saintly man, one of the righteous people who he was traveling from where he lived to Hajj. And on his journey he stopped at a village or a small town.
فلاحظ بيتا استوقفه كثيرا.
So he noticed a particular house that somehow caught his attention.
أخذ يتأمل البيت لمدة طويلة.
So because this house caught his attention, he kept on looking at this house for a long
كان
time.
مأخوذا بنورانية رآها في البيت.
He said there was like a light that took him and captured him when he kept on looking at this house.
فسأل أحد المارين من أهل القرية لمن هذا البيت؟
So he asked the passerby from the villages, he said, whose house is this?
قال لا الذي تبحث عنه ليس صاحب البيت.
So they said, the man you're actually looking for isn't the owner of the house.
ولكن أخبرك هذا البيت مر به قبل 100 سنة الإمام الجنيد سيد الطائفة وبات فيه 3 ليالي في طريقه إلى الحج. الذي وجدته من أثر ال3 الليالي هذه.
So the man you're looking for isn't the owner of this house. But about 100 years ago, Imam Junaid of Baghdad stopped in this house for 3 nights on his journey to Hajj. So what you're seeing there is the 3 nights that he spent there on his way to Hajj.
الزمان والمكان والجليس كله يتأثر بمجالسة أهل الله عز وجل. فنعم نحتاج إلى هذا المعنى يحيا في قلوبنا. اليوم الصلات بين الناس كما قال سيدي عبد العظيم أصبحت مرتبطة بالمادة. إذا كبر الإنسان في السن قالوا ما عاد يستطيع أصبح عالة. الروابط الدنيوية هذا أضرت بآدمية الإنسان بإنسانية الإنسان.
So this, we can see from this that was 100 years after he passed by that village, but place, time, and those who were in the company of someone are all affected. But as Sidi Abdul Adeel said, when the only value we attach to our interactions is the financial value, their economic value, then yes, we'll see someone when they age as having no real value in society.
لكن عندما تكون الصلة قائمة على أساس صلة في الله الحب في الله من أوثق عرى الإيمان يقول النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم من أوثق من أقوى من أشد عرى الإيمان الحب في الله المرء مع من أحب.
But when it's based on the love of God, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said one of the strongest branches or ropes or faith is loving in God, is the love in God, for the sake of God. He said, so when that love is there,
كيف يمكن أن تكون شيء معين يجعل أو حال معين يجعلك في مستوى أعلى من مستواك في الجنة؟
He said, just having that.
تفكر.
He said, how can you reach a place in the garden higher than your actual rank?
لمجرد أنك أحببت من هو في هذه الرتبة.
Just by loving that person who was of that rank.
المرء مع من أحب.
Because the Prophet said to you, a person is with those he loves.
فنعم حسن الظن باب.
So yes, having a good opinion is a door.
وما خاب صاحب حسن ظن أبدا حتى لو لم يكن من أحسنت الظن به أهلا لذلك.
And he said, and if you have a good opinion, you'll never lose. Even if the person you had a good opinion of isn't worth it.
ما دمت مقيما لضوابط الشرع بالطبع.
So long as you hold on to the Sharia, obviously.
Eat a lot, sleep a lot, hold on, wake up Sharia. That's the mantra.
كما قال سيدي علي قالت كل وأشرب ولا
Adeel, going back to your book, you've done several other books before this one, The Art of Integration, which featured of British Muslims and Muslims within British society. You've done In the Shade of the Tree. Now, traditionally, when we look at scholars or uliya or fuqaha, they tend to traditionally be men. Now, in your book, it's so lovely to see that there are women featured in this.
Yes.
But there's always this constant debate in the public sphere, in the public discourse, even within our Muslim communities, that women are hidden. How did you go around unpacking that? And I know you've tried to feature as many as you can. In Britain, we have challenges, but we are quite openly seen. But in around the world, obviously it differs to various societies. You being a man, more on how do you get access to that, and also how were you able to bring these women to the forelight?
I was very concerned that there were not enough women in the book, and I wish there had been more. We asked many of the shayukh about it, and they told me that the men are hard to find, the women are even harder to find. And they're hidden because of what's happening in the world in relationship to women. That's why they're hidden. Because you can imagine, we start talking about women saints, how attacked they would be. So there's a reason that they're hidden. I wish there were more. It was really interesting. There were two wives still alive of Sidi Muhammad Habib, and I sent a message to them, expecting them to say no, because I had hardly ever seen them. Whenever they spoke to me behind the door. But after he passed away, I asked, would they let me photograph them? And I got a message that they agreed. I was surprised. And then for some reason, I couldn't go to Morocco for 2 years. And then just before Ramadan, I said to my wife Hafsa, we really need to go now. I don't know why, but we need to go now. We went to the Zawiya, Hafsa went in, and she said, I don't think we'll be able to photograph Layla Fatima. She's really sick. But we went the next day, and she was sitting upright, and I was able to do the pictures of her, and it was to sit in front of her. This woman was already in paradise. And we returned to England, and 2 or 3 weeks later she passed away. So so many of the people that I photographed in this book passed away after I'd taken and I began nervous because I said, if they find out, they'll never let me take their pictures. And Mustafa Badawi said, no, don't worry. That's the reason you were allowed to take their pictures. They're on their way out. So they don't mind being photographed.
So leaving a legacy behind. So it's interesting you said that the women are there. They're just, obviously the political discourse obviously political climate plays a huge role or contributing factor as to why these women aren't seen. Yeah.
And I'd like to add, at the Mawlid in Lamu, when I went with Habib Bashwai, we, after the Mawlid, the granddaughter of Habib Salih, who's buried on the island, all the ulama and all the scholars and the shaykh all went and kissed her hand. That's how much respect they give to these women. So something's wrong at the moment. It needs to change.
Yeah, it's not what we hear in the public sphere at all. Would Habib Ali like to address that question about women?
هو الحقيقة إذا كان قال في البداية سيدي عبد العظيم أن كانت من الصعب أن تصور أناس الأصل أنهم هم يهربون من الشهرة، فالمرأة أقدر على الهروب في هذه الحالة لأنها تتحجج بحجابها وبسترها وما أحد يستطيع يعترض، فهي أقدر من الرجل بسهولة في أن تنال الهروب من أن تظهر. وأن تبرز أمام الناس. الأولياء يفرون من الظهور إلا أن اضطروا إلى ذلك.
So he said, like Sayyid Abdul Adim said, even the males, the saintly men were hard to find, hard enough to find. And he said, and women have at their disposal even more excuses than the men. Hijab, my place in life, and I don't want other people coming into my home. And so he said, the awliya by nature they like to be obscure. So, but the female awliya have even more excuses at their disposal to push people off and deflect them away.
لكن ينبغي لفت النظر إلى أنهن موجودات بكثرة.
So, but what need you to pay attention to is that they are there and there's many of them. They're numerous.
لسنا بأقل من الرجال.
They're not less of them than the men.
كما يقول الإمام عبد الرحمن بن عبد الله بالفقيه تلميذ الإمام الحداد في رشفاته يقول فيه النساء يقسمن كالرجال.
He said, so Habib Abdurrahman bin Abdullah al-Faqih, who was the direct student of Habib Abdullah al-Haddad, Abdullah bin Ali al-Haddad. He was a great man of God and a great man of learning. He wrote a poem called the Rashafat, the dewdrops. And he says in it, and amongst them there are women saints, and it's divided between the two. Sanctity is divided between the two.
كان الإمام السقاف الكبير في القرن السادس السابع الهجري يخرج من بلدته إلى بلدة أخرى ليلتقي بالشيخة سلطانة بنت علي الزبيدي من كبار الأولياء عندنا في وادي حضرموت. بينهما ستار ويجلسان يتذاكران في حقائق تجريد التوحيد في العلوم الدقيقة في التصوف.
So said Habib Abdurrahman al-Saqaf, Imam Abdurrahman al-Saqaf, who was in the 6th or 7th year of Hijrah, 6th or 7th century Hijrah. He would travel from where he lived in Tarim and Hadramaut, he would travel to another place in Do'an. It's a valley.
حضرموت قبل دوعان. حضرموت.
He said actually it's in Hadramaut before Do'an. And he would meet a sheikha called Sheikha Sultana bint Ali al-Zubaydi. And they would sit with a veil between them. And they would spend the time talking, and they'd converse on the subtle aspects of metaphysics that are only known experientially.
الحقائق.
What they call realities.
مرة من المرات ابنه الشيخ حسن كان حاضرا.
And he said one time his son Hassan, Habib Sayyid Abdurrahman, Imam Abdurrahman's son Hassan was there with him.
فسمع وفوجئ أن امرأة تتكلم بهذه المعاني العميقة العالية الكبيرة.
He said that he was listening and he was like shocked and taken aback. And because here in front of him was this woman who is talking about these very verified metaphysical realities and these experiential realities.
فقال شطرا بالعامية عجب ما بدا بكرة تباري جمال لا يمكن لناقة تباري الجمال. المرأة تكون مثل الرجال في ذلك عجب ما بدا بكرة تباري جمال.
And so he said, like in colloquial, he said, strange that a she-camel can race with male camels.
فقالت الشيخة لأبيه رد عليه أو أسكت تأدبا مع ولدك يا سيدي عبد الرحمن.
So through the veil she said to his father, she said, you want me to like reply back and put him in his place, or shall I be quiet out of respect for you?
قال رد عليه.
So he said, go on, put him in his
ماذا
place.
قلت يا شيخ حسن؟
So she said, Sheikh Hassan, what did you just say to me?
عجب ما بدا بكرة تباري جمال.
It's strange, how can a she-camel race with male camels?
قالت له الحمل بالحمل والزايد لبن والعيال.
She said to him, I'll tell you they can carry an equal load, but after this, she carries milk and children.
وأول شيخ أعد لي في الطريق إلى الله عز وجل امرأة جدتي عمة الوالدة الحوارة صفية بنت علوي الجفري رحمه الله. هي أول أشياخ عندما أكتب عن أشياخ فهم ملء، يعني عندما أستعرض أستطيع أن أعد لك 30-40 هكذا بسهولة من غير توقف من العارفات بالله مظنة الولاية التي لقيتهن في حياتي. هم منتشرات وأنهم منتشرات.
He said, me myself, my first sheikh in the inward was a sheikha. Her name was Safiya, Sheikh Hababa Safiya. She was my mom's aunt. She was the first knower of God that I took from. So she was my first sheikh actually. And he said, right now, just without even trying to jog my memory, 30 of them would come to mind of the women sheikhs that I've known. And that's what.
Saba, it's so lovely to hear the story about, a woman coming married against in this place, not for any, specific reasons, but rightly so. Just so you know, the time has gone on. So we have a timer here, so I'm keeping the strict time of the time. So I'm just going to come back to you both about just the aspect of women when you both said they're hidden. With historically what's happened and obviously what's going on today, when we have a sense of identity crisis that's going on in the Muslim world, especially with younger generations now, even on the older generations, is it not important that we have some of these women, you feature them in your book, but coming forward, so not just women have access, but everyone has access to them, understands their stories, to be able to, provide the stories and learn from these ulama, so we can take it forward for the next generation to come.
ما أدري أرجو أن تتحملوني فيما سأقول.
I don't know. I hope you can. I ask you, Your Grace, and to tolerate me for what I'm going to say.
نحن نعيش حالة من التقليد الأعمى لفكرة الحقوق مستمرة ترفض أن تتوقف.
He said we have a problem, which is that we blindly copy this idea of rights and equal rights and so on.
الحديث عن الحقوق في عصرنا اليوم تحول إلى وسيلة للعقوق.
He said this talk about rights has become a way to take away people's rights in this age.
لأنه أصبح التفكير في مفهوم الحقوق ليس المرأة فقط، الرجال والأطفال والكبار والحيوانات. الحيوانات لا أفضل منها في هذا الحال في الجزئية لأنها لا تطالب، لكن بدأت تنمي في الدواخل مفهوم الأنا، الإيجو. هناك فرق بين تفعيل دور الإنسان وبين الحديث عن دور الإنسان المعين، رجل أو امرأة، بطريقة فيها الأنا، بحيث يصبح في كل مقفل فين المرأة؟ فين النساء؟ ما جبت النساء؟ ما جبت الأطفال؟ ما رتبت الكذا؟ فيصبح يتحول من الروح التي من أجلها قد أقيم إلى معركة. ولكن الجواب على سؤالك نعم، نحن ندعو أهل الله الصالحين والصالحات أن يبرزوا ما آتاهم الله عز وجل قدر المستطاع. وأنا طولت سامحني. الله يعينك.
He said at this time, people have taken this and it's become a way for people to express their agendas. Yes, so instead of everyone coming together in a spirit of mutual cooperation and mutual benefit, where are the women? Where's the children? Where's the this? Where's the that? And in the midst of that, we've lost the spirit for which we've all come together for those gatherings. And what that does sometimes is, it becomes a way, instead of to talk about all these rights and to talk about what about me, where am I in the story, it becomes a way of self-aggrandizement. It becomes egoistic. It becomes an egoistic show. So it ceases to be about the spirit for which we've come, and it quickly disintegrates into a conflict, where each person is taking sides and seeing where they can get out of it. And he said, yes, I would say, and I say openly to all the men and women, saints and righteous people who are out there, come out and whatever of what gifts you've been given, you're permitted to show them to people, so people know what you have.
الذي يخفف من وطأة الأنا والإيجو في مسألة الحقوق أن نقوم نحن الرجال بالصدق مع الله عز وجل في إعطاء المرأة حقها.
So we'll stop, also lessen this talk about rights is that us as men have to be real. And we have to stop any oppression we're doing of women and start giving women their rights and give them their dues.
قم أنت يا رجل وكن رجلا وأعطي المرأة حقها وطالب الرجال الآخرين بأن يمكن المرأة من حقها.
So I'd say to all men, be a real man and give the woman her dues. I'd tell other men to give their women their dues.
الكلمة قد تكون موجعة لكني سأعيدها.
So it might be hurtful what I'm saying, but I need to say it
كن
again.
رجلا.
Be a man. Man up.
وليس كن ذكرا.
I didn't say be a male. I didn't say be a male. I said man up. Be a man.
واعتني بهذا الأمر. في سائر أمور الحقوق.
And take care of this. And in all things to do with other people's rights.
لا ينبغي أن نجعل المطالبة بهذا الحق عند صاحب الحق فقط.
Don't let it be that the person who wants to be given their dues is the one that's left talking and asking for that due.
لأن هذا سيحول المجتمع من كل جهة كل واحد يبحث فقط عن حقه هو حقي أنا.
The society will collapse into that, where everyone's there at the sidelines trying to get whatever they can clamor for.
هذا أبعد ما يكون عن الأولياء.
That's the furthest thing from what the
الأولياء من سر ولايتهم أنهم لا يرون أصلا لهم حقوقهم.
So one of the secrets of their wilaya, their sainthood, is that they don't see they have any rights.
المبتدئ في طريق الولاية يسقط حقه. بمعنى أن يسامح في حقه الخاص للناس. يهب حقه من أجل الله يتصدق بحقه. أول خطوة في الولاية هذا المبتدئ 101 ولاية.
They said the novitiate, the person who's starting out on the path, the first thing they need to do is just get rid of any claim they have over everyone else. Yes, whatever rights they think are due to them from other people, do away with that, yeah, and leave it. That's wilaya 101.
أما إذا بدأ يرتقي
But when he starts to ascend,
يدرك أنه في الأصل ليس له حق.
So in the beginning he drops his rights. As he goes up and he experiences God's presence, he realizes, actually I never had any dues anyway to start with.
ولكن الله لما جعل هذه الحقوق لإقامة شرعة الأرض ولنفع البشر بينهم البين وحفظ السوء عنهم، لكن أنا عبد ما لي حق، الحق لك يا رب، ويغلبه تقصيره عن شهود تقصير الآخرين.
So when the person's soul is refined, you realize that these rights we have down here are God's rights, so that no one can do injustice to another, and to protect each one's rights so they can ascend. Yes. And he realizes that I myself had no claim to anything to start with, I'm just a servant.
لكن مع الدعوة التي وجهناها أنهم يظهرون أنفسهم، أقول لك شيء من رحمة الله بنا ألا يظهر أولياءه في وقت سوء الظن، انتشار سوء الظن.
He said, despite the fact that I've said that I would say to the awliya, male and female, to show themselves, it's from the mercy of God for people in this time, is that they're not showing themselves, because it's a time where people are cynical and hypocritical. People are skeptical.
That was precisely my point. It wasn't so much to do with women coming forward, it's to do with the climate of what's going on. If you're evidently Muslim, you could be targeted.
That's the rule. He said that the Ijwa.
وسوء الظن أكثر حسن الظن يظهره. مرأة أو رجل. المسألة ليست جندر.
He said just have a good opinion. Allah will let you see them, be they male or female. It's not a gender issue.
يعني باختصار انظروا بعيني سيدي عبد العظيم سترون أولياء.
He said I'll summarize it for you just in summary. Look at the world through Sidi Abdul Azim's eyes, you'll see them too.
So we only have a few minutes left for Q&As. So I'm going to ask, if you have a question, please put your hand up. Please refrain from commenting, because I would like questions first. And then they'll be around later on. Although Habib Ali does have to dash off, Abdul will be around later. So the gentleman at the second row, we have a roving mic somewhere.
نبدأ بالأسئلة وإذا كان في مجال لتعليق بعدها.
السلام عليكم والله يجزيكم الخير على الكلام الذي يلامس القلب. شو مواصفات الشخص يعني بما إنه حديثنا عن الأولياء شو مواصفات الشخص يلي هو مرجح إنه يصبح من الأولياء لعوام للعوام. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. In English, I'm saying what are the characteristics of the person who can be a candidate to be one of the awliya. Thank you.
What are the characteristics of a person who can be considered an awliya?
So did everyone hear that? The characteristics of a potential candidate to becoming a friend of God.
I'm going to get another question, and I think we can just do them all. Has anybody else got a question? No other questions? Comments? Okay, I think there was one so far. Okay, let's answer. Oh, sorry, the gentleman over there. Second row again.
In a time where we live in such confusion and where there's constant sparks building to try and ignite a flame of disruption amongst us, how do we create cohesion, firstly individually, then communally, and then globally amongst ourselves so that we can become aspirations towards building something towards a larger picture that can progress towards this?
Okay. All right, so it's two questions. So question number 2 is, because of the political discourse and climate, how can we build aspirations individually and collectively so we can move forward as a community? So, and so as a middle identity, we
I'll leave Habib to answer that.
Yeah. So, do you want to answer the first one?
Yeah. On this question of and really Allahu Alim, but a very important. Someone said to me a long time ago, one of the smallest doors to paradise is the door of humility. If they don't have humility, if they are full of themselves, just be careful. As I mentioned about Sidi Mambil Koshi, when he said, I'm not a sheikh, I'm not a fakir, I'm nothing, I knew then that he was the real thing. And he wasn't just saying that for show, that's what he believed. And that's why he didn't allow photography, not because he thought photography was haram, but he didn't want anything to exist that made him seem as if he was something. And this is very common in many of the people in my book. Really, I went with we went to visit somebody with Habib, and he had never been photographed before, and we discussed the subject of photographing him. And his answer was, don't ask. If you ask, I have to say no. Meaning, don't ask, just do it. Because he realized that I was asking and he didn't want to refuse me. But it's not in his nature to be photographed. This is from deep humility, really. We cannot understand that humility. And they have an empathy with you. When they see you, there is no judgment on you at all. They see you at a certain point in your spiritual journey, and they pray for you. But there is no judgment at all.
والقول ما قالت حذامي هو ما قاله سيدي عبد العظيم. وله صلة بسؤالك. في ظل الفتن واشتباه الأمور كثرة الصلاة على الحبيب صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم، التعلق بجنابه الشريف تدخل على القلوب النور، محبة الصالحين. اقرأ سير الصالحين وما كانوا عليه وتراجمهم وما كانت شؤونهم وموضع اهتماماتهم، سترى أن البون كبير بينما الناس تنشغل به اليوم أو يشغلون به ولو حتى بدعوى الإصلاح وخدمة الدين، وبين حقيقة الأمر.
What I'd say is what Sidi Abdul Azim said, and connecting the first question to the second question, I'd say the two aren't separate. And if we want people who can change society and so on, and especially in a time of confusion, in a time of such crisis, is we need people who do a lot of salawat, send salutations on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because through salutations on the Prophet, light will permeate their hearts. And people who study the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and study how the Prophet behaved and try and emulate and embody what he did sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And also who studied, and also to have salawat on the Prophet and to have a heart connection to the righteous, to have love for them. and to study their lives, and to study what was important to them, and to study what was of concern to them. Because sometimes we're concerned with things that are of no real matter, or we're distracted by things that don't really matter, or we're caused to be distracted deliberately by things of no real consequence.
إذا كان الله تعالى قال لسيد الخلق وأعظمهم صلى الله عليه وسلم وكلا نقص عليك من أنباء الرسل ما نثبت به فؤادك. إذا أنباء الرسل فيها تثبيت لفؤاد سيد الرسل، فكيف بأنباء بحاجة أفئدتنا نحن إلى أنباء الصالحين؟ ألا تفعل ذلك في قلوبنا؟ بلى تفعل.
So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, I think it's Surah Hud, He says, and we recount to you the stories of the prophets, meaning those who came before him sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that which will make your heart firm in its resolve. So the master of the prophets was being told the stories of the prophets, so that while he was going through the tests and tribulations he went through, he would see that they'd gone through them before, and it made firm his heart. Aren't our hearts even in more need of the stories and the lives of the righteous, so that we can be firm in our resolve and we can be firm in our path?
وأود أن أستأذن قبل أن ننتهي أن أقول لمن يستطيع أخذ الكتاب خذ الكتاب. اعتبرها كلامي عن دعاية، أي دعاية لكنها نورانية. من يستطيع منكم أخذ الكتاب خذ الكتاب.
And he said, I'd say to you all here before, because we've got to finish soon and wind down, whomever of you has the resources to get the book, I'd say to you, get the book. Is it an endorsement for the book? Yes, it's an endorsement, but it's an endorsement of luminosity.
خذوا الكتاب ولا تكتفي فقط بتقليب الصفحات والنظر إلى جمال الإخراج والتصوير الذي قام به سيدي عبد العظيم.
He said, but don't turn the pages and admire how the quality, the paper used, the quality of the
لا افعل هذا.
He said, do that, but he said, okay, he said, sorry. He said, do that, enjoy the professional. But he said, don't let that be the only thing. Don't let that be enough
لا
for you.
بأس أول مرة قلبها بهذا الترتيب.
He said, I don't mind. First time, do it for that reason.
لكن أعتقد أنك بعد ذلك كل واحد منكم سيشعر أنه محتاج ينظر بتأمل ويحاول أن يقرأ القصة التي من وراء الصورة.
He said, but after the first few times, you should look at it with some reflection and ponder and read the story behind that photograph.
ربما الأسطر اللي كتبها عند كل صورة تلمح المعنى، لكن الغوص في الصورة يجمعك على قصة من ورائها.
It said maybe the little comment beside will tell you the context, but look at that and look at the picture and you'll get to what's behind the picture.
المهم عش مع أهل الله، تمر عليك السنة لياليها وأيامها وأنت من وقت إلى آخر تعيش مع أحد من الصالحين.
He said the important thing is that you live with the people of Allah, so that your days will pass by and it's like you're living with them. You're connected to them.
نسأل الله لنا ولكم كمال التوفيق.
I ask God to give us a new
سامحينا على التطويل.
He said forgive us for going over the time.
يا بني المصطفى أنتم ظهري يا عيني أنتم ظهري فارحموا عبدكم واجبروا كسري فارحموا عبدكم واجبروا كسري الله جئتكم راجيا بأبي بكر يا عيني بأبي بكر وبمن عدله شمل الأكوان وعلي مرتضى وشهيد من الله وصلوا حبكم يا ذوي القدر يا عيني يا ذوي القدر وامنحوا عطفكم وجروح هجري وامنحوا عطفكم وجروح هجري الله ذبت في حبكم وفنى صبري يا عيني وفنى صبري فالجفا في الحشا يلهبني نيران فاصلوا مغرما يا ذوي العير فانهالله يا بني المصطفى أنتم ظهري يا عيني أنتم ظهري فارهموا عبدكم